Welcome to the October 29th, 2025 Long Range Planning Committee meeting on the residential study. We will be holding a hybrid public meeting, which enables remote electronic participation as legally authorized by the Code of Virginia for the Planning Commission's electronic meeting policy adopted on July 7th, 2022. Are there people online?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we do. There's one community member and staff.
Okay, so members of the LRPC are participating both here in person and virtually through electronic means. This meeting is being recorded for our public records and will be posted on the Arlington County Commission's meeting YouTube page. Avoid sharing any personal information that you would not like to be made public. At this time, I'd like to orient everyone to our hybrid environment and cover a few specifics about how tonight's meeting will run. Members of the public may attend the meeting here in person or electronically by using the Microsoft Teams link provided on the LRPC webpage, the county's events calendar, and the email notification sent to LRPC ZOCO email subscribers. Additionally, there is a dial-in phone option for those who wish to use it. For our planning commissioners joining virtually, if anyone loses internet connectivity during tonight's meeting, please reconnect with us by phone. Please keep your phones and devices muted until you are called on. Turn off sound to any other devices around you to minimize interference. For our virtual attendees using Microsoft Teams, please turn off your feed. I will address when it's appropriate to turn it on in a moment. The Microsoft Teams meeting chat is active to serve two purposes: to assist participants who need technical support and for participants to pose brief clarifying questions to the larger audience. While the clarifying questions will be monitored, they will not be formally acknowledged. Staff may address these comments as appropriate. The Teams chat should not be used for discussion or inappropriate statements. Those who are planning to provide public comment may only do so at the end, as the chat may not be used for that purpose. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public testimony periods. I would also like to remind everyone in the room to speak up slowly and clearly and point to the microphone and point your voice to the microphone to allow virtual participants to hear you. If commissioners participating virtually wish to be recognized to speak on an item during this course of the meeting, please turn on your video feed and raise your virtual hand in Teams. Commissioner Steinberger, who is running the meeting when she arrives, as well as staff, will monitor the video feeds. Do we have any commission members who joined us via phone today without the video option?
I'll see anyone.
Okay. Unlike the Planning Commission's regular hearings, the LRPC agenda items are not public hearings. Therefore, public comment is at Commissioner Steinberger's discretion. I understand she is allowed public comment. Do we have to sign up?
We do have a signing sheet right there if they want.
Okay, so public commenters can sign up over there. I will call, or Commissioner Steinberger will call for speakers at the end of the meeting after the committee discussion has concluded. Members of the public attending virtually will speak first, followed by in-person attendees. The speaking time allotted will depend on the number of speakers we have this evening. Usually it's 1.5 to 2 minutes per person. In-person attendees, please add your name to the speakers list on the table. Virtual attendees, please indicate in the chat that you'd like to provide your name, you'd like to provide comment, and your name will be added to our list of speakers. Ms. Alfonso Ahmed will acknowledge your request in the Teams chat. When virtual attendees are called upon to speak, you must unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon that is located on your meeting command bar. The moderator does not have the ability to unmute you. You will be muted when your time has concluded. As an alternative, public comment may also be provided in the public comment form posted on the LRPC webpage. Lastly, this is a public forum. Tonight's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act requirements. So as I mentioned, Commissioner Steinberger is our LRPC chair for the Planning Commission. She is almost here. She has a little one at home and her husband's traveling this week, so she's juggling a lot. So I'll get us started today until she arrives. So should we start off with introductions?
Please. Yeah.
Okay, I'm Tammy Peterson. I'm chair of the Planning Commission. And why don't we go this way?
Adriana Torresa.
I'm Eileen Winquist, Stormwater Communications Manager with the Department of Environmental Services.
Nick Rogers, Principal Planner in the Department of Community Planning, Housing, and Development.
Peter Robertson, Planning Commission.
My name is Tony Striner. I'm here with the Planning Commission.
Eric Berkey with the Planning Commission.
Jim Lantelmi, Planning Commission.
Paula Modell, Planning Commission.
Lisa Marcellus, Climate Change, Energy and Environment Commission.
Charlotte Haynes, Forestry. Natasha Alfonso, and I'm with the Planning Division for the county.
Sarah Steinberger, Planning Commission. Hello.
And we have some people online too, Sarah.
Okay, online people, introduce yourselves.
I'm Ann Bodine from Lion Park and Arlington Tree Action Group.
Ryan Delaney, Department of Parks and Recreation.
I'm Laura Schaub. I'm with Planning Urban Design.
Hello, my name is Claudia Klepek. I live in Ashton Heights.
Any other online
We have
participants at LRPC?
Matthew, Violet, and Ashley. Svoboda, do you want to introduce yourselves? Maybe they're, well, I've recognized them. I've got them on the list.
Okay.
And
Oh, and other folks in the room?
Bill Richardson, President, Donaldson Civic Association.
Jean Hensrod, President, Leeway Overland Civic Association, and I'm just here to listen. I'm not.
Okay. Thank you. We welcome public participation, so thanks for coming. Tenley, did you already go through? Okay, great. So we should move to presentation from staff, I believe. Presentation from staff, please, when you're ready.
Sounds good. Thank you so
Great.
much,
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the commission. Delighted to be here tonight. Myself and Ms. Widenquist, my co-lead on the study. We've been working hard on this for several months now, and we're going to be working on it for still some time, as you'll hear from our presentation tonight. My hope is that, and our aspiration is that we be as quick as possible with the briefing so that we can get to the good part of the meeting, your discussion, your comments and questions for us, and any feedback or guidance as we move into subsequent phase of the study. But we're going to answer, basic questions on who, what, where, and why with the low residential study, with a note on community engagement, and then a quick look ahead to phase 2, which we expect to commence in the first part of shortly after the first of the year. And so just taking you all back to February of this year, February of 2025, the board endorsed a study charge that directed staff to study potential amendments to our zoning ordinance, focused specifically on facilitating better tree canopy and stormwater management outcomes. And that specific direction to the county manager was to study, evaluate, and recommend a maximum impervious allowable area limit, and specifically in the county's low density residential areas. And so we do have a copy of the charge on our website. Madam Chair, I'll ask for your forgiveness now and hope to earn it during the evening. The presentation was published about 60 minutes prior to our meeting tonight. And so for those who are reviewing the slides now or in the coming days or weeks, those hyperlinks will take you to some of the documents that I'll refer to tonight.
Okay.
So,
I'm going to go on a limb and guess that most people are seeing this presentation then for the first time, so that's fine. Well, let's continue.
yeah, yep, and we'll yes, so we'll continue on with our presentation. So, and so with that direction, so the direction didn't stop there. With the board's charge, the board focused the study on with a couple different parameters in mind, keying on looking at some of our existing lot coverage requirements. Should they remain alongside a new impervious area limit if the board were to adopt one? Should there be an inclusion of an additional requirement related to a minimum plantable area? Should potentially yard and setback requirements be adjusted? Again, focusing back on those stormwater management, those tree conservation, tree planting desired outcomes, and then should the recommendation, should it differentiate between the lot size or the lot zoning district? So those considerations, but then also some additional things to keep in mind, some additional things that the board expected us to incorporate and evaluate as we were conducting this work. You're seeing the list there. In the interest of time, I won't read those verbatim, but I will focus in on the right hand of the side. The board's charge was explicit in saying, staff, as you're conducting this body of work, we want you to be focused on this, but not on these areas specifically. And they directed us specifically to not study or recommend changes to the zoning ordinance's existing maximum main building footprint limits, the maximum building height limits, to make any recommendations, for example, for an absolute total square footage limit to our lot coverage or existing lot coverage requirements, and then any sort of further change or alteration to what is or isn't a lot coverage. And from the board's own words in their charge, the specific focus was the ground level and what was happening at the finished grade. That area and focus of the lot being most consequential to stormwater management and, again, tree canopy outcomes, things that I'll continue to be repeating throughout the course of our briefing today. Already we're 5 minutes into the presentation, and I've loaded us up with a lot of jargon and terminology and things. Bear with us as we get to those. But first, the who is something we wanted to make sure that the Planning Commission and our advisory designees joining us tonight were aware. You've got myself and Eileen representing our respective departments. Mr. Delaney is on the line virtually today, not necessarily as a co-lead, but certainly a close collaborator and a coordinator on a daily and weekly basis. And again, not just the three of us, multiple folks amongst our communications team, other engineers. Ultimately, once we get into phase 2, we'll be involving our zoning much more as well. And so, we just want to make the commission, we wanted the commission know that this is an interdepartmental effort working with a bunch of different folks. And so the board endorses the charge and directs the manager and vis-a-vis county staff to conduct the study. But that board charge, again, it's 3 pages, 2.5 of when you're going with the front and back. And so it was really incumbent upon staff to take that charge and turn it into an actionable study with tasks and deliverables and achievements and milestones and over time, and with a straight-faced idea of how long it was going to take and what we were going to do when. And so that work was conducted over the summer. We published a project plan that provides a lot of those details. It doesn't say, what we're going to do necessarily in April 27th, 2026, but it gives you an idea of the different tasks and the different actions and objectives we'll be working on at that time. And so with phase 1, which we're in right now, a primary focus, build awareness. Let people know that the county board has initiated a study on potentially a zoning text amendment that could affect 49% of the county's acreage, and I'll show that map in a few different slides. And building awareness, but also informing the public on some of the technical information, the regulatory information that is involved in managing stormwater, that's involved in growing and flourishing the county's tree canopy. Phase 2, we expect that to actually be the longest of the 3 phases, starting again shortly after the first of the year. That's when we're going to be evaluating different options, bringing different options to you and to other members of the public for feedback and guidance and reaction. And then ultimately, around this time next year, per the project plan, none of us have a crystal ball, but per our project plan, we anticipate finalizing those recommendations and bring those to the county board for ultimately their actions.
Hey, dear, could you also look at where our seats are for?
Can we please have folks who are online mute yourselves? Yeah. Unless you've been called on to speak. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. A lot of process, a lot of project management up to this point. Let's go back to those some of those key terms. Impervious area, impervious surface, they're both synonyms. Think of anything like this table, something hard, something that significantly impedes or prevents the ground from absorbing water. Sometimes it's hard like this table, sometimes it's porous, and we'll show an example of that on the next slide. So that's what we mean by impervious area, a limit on that and that bullet. That's what the board has asked us to study and give them a recommended maximum impervious area limit on. The second one is lot coverage. There was a lot of talk of, well, do study this element of don't study this piece of lot coverage, don't study this piece of lot coverage. Lot coverage is a zoning regulation. And it's focused in a couple different areas of Article 3 of our zoning ordinance. By and large, it limits certain types of structures and surface materials that can or can't be put on a person's property. So lot coverage, a zoning regulation, and then finally plantable area. Consider whether or not to have a minimum plantable area in the board's charge. So plantable area, there isn't, I don't have a hard and fast definition in a regulation document or a dictionary, but think of what a healthy tree needs to grow tall. It needs the right amount of soil depth. It needs the right amount of area for that drip line to move out. It needs to be free of obstructions from impervious area, buildings, underground utilities, other things. That the plantable area is the optimal conditions for tree canopy and tree growth at the end of the day. So a little more. So that was the textual. Here's the visual on impervious surface, impervious area. I mentioned any surface material, buildings. There was some early comment that we received in some of our virtual Q&A. Well, the board said to exclude main building footprint. So the study is going to ignore buildings. The answer is no. Buildings are impervious area. Rain falls on the roof. It can't get through because the building itself significantly impedes or prevents the ground from absorbing the water. The ones that are not as intuitive are things, again, significantly impedes or prevents. Think of permeable pavers. A lot of questions from some members of the public on, well, I have my permeable pavers in the driveway. I put them in because I would get a credit on my stormwater utility fee, but you're saying they're permeable pavers, but they're impervious. And the unfortunate tongue twister of the answer is yes, that's the case. Even for the stormwater utility, we count that as impervious area, but then after further evaluation and work with our DES colleagues, those credits can be assessed and issued on the stormwater utility fee. So a little bit, so we're not going to pretend and say that these are easy terms to understand and hit off the tip of the tongue, but they are important. That's why we're spending this early phase of a few months establishing that shared understanding of how these different technical terms work, and impervious surface was one that deserved its own slide. And so you can look back at some of the previous meetings that the board had leading up to the February 2025 issuance of the charge. This is a slide from one of those presentations where the board was weighing a bunch of different factors. You know, what degree of change, how much data do we have access to, how good is that data, other different factors. And ultimately what the board's consensus was at the time was to move in a direction with this study to focus more on the impervious area limits as opposed to a wholesale change or a partial change on our existing lot coverage definitions. Said differently and shown differently on this slide, there were really, as we view it, and as we see, as we are seeing through your eyes, the same board presentations and board discussion at their meetings, you know, the decision tree that they had in front of them really came down to a couple different primary directions. They elected to choose this first option with those that keep or remove decision tree to occur later on during the course of the study that we're in right now. So a little bit of background. That being said, we're not speaking on behalf of the board. We're using publicly accessible information to bring this content into you tonight. And so, questions on, this study or a different study or the board's decisions ultimately do need to be lodged with the board members themselves. A couple of final slides before I turn things over to the good part of the presentation to Eileen, the why. So we've done a lot of the what and the who and the where. So there's the why. The first is the specific mention in our 2023 Forestry and Natural Resources Plan, which the board mentions by reference in the study charge. We have a backup slide in your presentation today that goes into greater detail on some of the specific guidance, particularly with those existing lot coverage regulations. And the slide is from an information board that was featured at our October 20th open house. Another one of the whys is just a hard look at our existing regulations and an understanding that as written, they are not optimized to achieve those goals and objectives in the Forestry and Natural Resources Plan, in our Stormwater Master Plan, and our other adopted plans and policies. When it comes down to stormwater treatment, the focus, and again, a lot of this comes from what the Code of Virginia and our state structure allows us to do and authorizes us to do. We're only treating the new impervious area for water quality and water quantity when there's development in our low density residential areas. And when that development occurs, the specific focus is really only on construction projects. They're going to disturb more than 2,500 square feet of land, of acreage. And so for the incremental creep that has come over the years from walkways, patios, and other forms of, again, hardscape, impervious areas at the ground level, those aren't captured in those land disturbance activity in our LDA permitting process. And the air quotes on lot coverage was specific because, taking a look at the slide here, take a look at that back patio on the left in the yellow. So per our current lot coverage zoning requirements, that patio at the ground level there would not count toward that maximum percentage. It would only count if it was 8 inches or more above finished grade. The same goes for the swimming pool in the background. We can, we're not using a lot of definition here, but I interpret that image to be an in-ground swimming pool. So the actual circle of where the pool is, where we all swim, that is considered lot coverage. That's counted in your calculation in your maximum limit. But all of the apron, the cement skirting around there, the pool deck, when you hop out and you sit on your sun chair, not considered lot coverage. So there are just some obvious inconsistencies and discrepancies in our existing regulations that are not serving our overall objectives. I mentioned that 49% figure earlier. This is going back to this map that outlines and identifies all of the areas in the county in our R zoning districts, the residential areas, excluding our RA apartments, our commercial mixed use areas, a little bit of industrial that we have as well. The impervious area increases that we've been seeing in recent years is mostly in these areas. It's mostly in this 49% of the county. We don't have to go back too far in time to some of the significant events in July of 2019, other massive rain and storm events where stormwater damage, tree canopy loss have occurred, and in part, the increase in impervious over time has been one of the culprits. So there's a balance here. The balance being that our acreage that is in low residential zoning we're now at a point where we need to start thinking about it more intently, factoring that into the broader conversation of how do we manage stormwater and how do we meet our overall tree canopy goals. So with that, Ms. Winquist, I'll turn things to you.
Sounds good. You want to just keep sharing it? Okay, great. Thank you. So yeah, continuing on that track, this slide here highlights the different zoning categories that we have in the county and kind of a breakout of total land area in those categories, and then the amount of pervious. So you can kind of see right at the top there, again, how critical the low residential study area is in terms of the amount of pervious area. And again, as Rick noted, those pervious spaces are really important areas, to kind of have this, ability to, again, increase our tree canopy, kind of that focus on trees, and also, continue to improve our stormwater management and look towards, increasing these environmental benefits. Next slide. So again, just a little bit more depth of looking at some of our data. This, we haven't really kind of fully done a lot of data analysis. That'll happen a lot more in phase 2, but we did kind of update some of our impervious data from the work session and from some of the earlier sessions. So you can see here, looking at the low residential development in the last 10 years, again, kind of focusing in on some of that data from the LDA permits, and you can see that older properties developed, prior to 2015 generally have less impervious, about 32, 33%, I think there, versus 41 is kind of the average for properties developed in the past 10 years. And then a lot of that is obviously, the majority of that is the building, but also the driveways, and again, that's pretty substantial, 11% with patios and lead walks. And as Nick was pointing out, those are the spaces, that do not count as lot coverage. So this is really where looking at trying to create this impervious area limit that would actually be, a fully effective limit, including kind of all of these surfaces and built areas on a lot. Next slide. So this slide here kind of highlights, thinking a little bit more zoning in, or focusing in more with our tree canopy, the importance of these low density areas in achieving that 40% tree canopy goal from the FNRP. And you can see there that the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments has recommended actually a goal of 55%, up to 55% tree canopy for low to medium residential density areas. And that's typically because, in urban areas like this, there are some areas that cannot, get close to that 40%. So some other areas have to compensate. So you can see on the map there, some of our civic associations that, that have met that goal, or that are at the 50-55, but we do have quite a few areas, that, would need to increase their canopy really in order. So again, some of those spaces need to go beyond, because we do have some areas like our metro quarters where we're not able to get to that 40%. And so you all, may be familiar with this, but I think we've all been learning from our urban forestry, our partnership with the Parks Department here. And so one thing we do want to note is, I think everybody's familiar with the trees and the critical root zone, but actually the root areas, needed for trees is actually even larger than the drip zone, or they sort of, the critical root zone. And the roots, tend to be really, sometimes we've been looking at some of the drawings of trees, and sometimes it shows the roots kind of more focused around the tree, but actually they are much more spread out horizontally and are fairly shallow around the tree. So I think that's something, that we're trying to kind of to educate everyone a little bit more. And so the space needed, even larger than maybe what you're not necessarily had thought of. So most of the roots are even in the top 6 inches, so very shallow. And the large mature trees need at least 400 square feet, and the soil depth at least down to 3 feet. So even if you have space on a lot that is not built upon, that doesn't have a building or a shed or anything like that, it may not necessarily be available for trees. So they need to have space away from patios and other things. They need to have that sort of free soil space, to be able to absorb water and kind of to thrive, as they want to. So as you can see, our urban forestry staff, recommends 10 feet from buildings and 5 feet from even paved areas.
So for folks, online or who are just, learning about the study and are curious how they can learn more and how to participate, we do have a lot of information on the website, which you can see there. We also have an additional open house. I know some of you were able to join us on the 20th, which was great. For our first open house, we have another one on November 13th. They are going to be the same format. So, if you came to the first one, you don't necessarily need to come again. But we do hope to, reach out and get some additional folks to join us on the 13th. We are trying to also create a virtual version of the open house. If they're not able to come in person, can do that. And then you can also subscribe to some of our e-newsletters, and we'll be sharing updates in the planning and building e-news and also our stormwater utility newsletter. So that there's some resources again to stay up to date. And just again noting, we have been doing the past couple months. Nick and I have been making some of the rounds and enjoying some of our wonderful Arlington festivals and events, Rock and Recycle and Green Valley Day, Westover Day. We had a couple virtual Q&As, so it's been great. We've been able to, engage and hear from a lot of folks, and just really initially kind of trying to share information about the study and let people know, that how they can participate. But we have gotten some, interesting and useful feedback as well. So again, just highlighting that. We also did want to note, if you haven't been had a chance to go on the website, we did create a new mapping viewer, which is linked on the LRS website. And what this viewer does, you can see on the map here, it shows the tree canopy, the impervious area, and the zoning category for individual parcels. So it kind of overlays some of those geographic layers, which is great. So just a useful tool. We may hope to build this out and add a little bit, of sort of searching or maybe sorting capability, but we wanted to get some of this information, make it available as early as possible. So we were able to put this online this summer, and I think that and learning some more about some of the data in their neighborhoods. So I think just to wrap up, really the low residential study, we are trying to balance, and think about two main considerations. So again, looking at the charge and thinking about the benefits for stormwater, for tree canopy, also trying to minimize the impacts, with drainage, from individual lots, from lot to lot issues, some of those localized drainage issues, so that really those are benefit from less impervious area, but then thinking as well about flexibility for property owners and individual uses. So really trying to find a sweet spot where we can try to balance these two considerations. And looking ahead to phase 2, we will be starting to develop options for our maximum impervious area limits. And also thinking about plantable area minimums. Is that something that we want to include? And is it possible the maximum impervious area limits? We'll be able to do that kind of as a secondary effect as well. So we will be as we move into early next year, we'll be choosing these options, comparing them, looking at what are the impacts and the benefits that we see from the options. And then we'll also have additional public engagement opportunities where we hope to share those and get feedback from the community as well. So we will be as well presenting these options to the LRPC with the designees, but we will also be briefing the individual next year, and we'll figure out kind of the timing on those. But and then obviously after that would be moving into phase 3, and that would be kind of determining what the preferred approach is, and then again, if all that is moving forward, developing some recommendations for zoning language changes and updates. So I think that is what we had for slides.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Madam Chair, I know my understanding is that LRPC is typically accustomed to, organizing its discussion around 2, 3, 4, 5 different themes or topics. The focus of our presentation is really informing, educating, providing face time for you and your colleagues. And so I don't necessarily have a suggested sort of, I don't necessarily have one thing that we're seeking feedback on at this time. Certainly once we get to phase 2, we will. And so really, I think the main feedback that we're interested in hearing is, did you get it? Did you understand? Are there opportunities for us to clarify things further? What are you hearing in the community? What are your observations? That type of thing. So that when we do come back in phase 2, we can hit the ground running.
So why don't we start with any clarifying questions? That would be things that were unclear in the slides, things like, hey, could you, is that what you meant? Find this, so on and so forth. And once we've gone through that, I'm thinking that we'll sort of have more of a free-ranging discussion. If folks have a specific topic they would like to sort of hone in on. I mean, if folks are really determined to have topic areas, we could do like tree canopy and like impervious surfaces, but I don't really feel the need to artificially create, agenda topics, again, from an informational standpoint at this kind of first meeting stage. So if folks are good at having a free-ranging conversation, no one objects to that, then that's the approach we'll take. Internet people, does anyone object? Great, internet people are quiet. Okay, so clarifying questions first. So many hands all at once. I think I saw yours first, and then we'll hit the end of the table.
You mentioned that you're excluding total square footage, height. I just wanted to have a little bit more conversation as to why that should be excluded. There's a reason, or I'm curious.
To be blunt, because that's what the board has directed us to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be affected regardless. But okay, that's enough answer for me.
Yeah. I wish I could expound more, but the board was very clear in their direction. Focus only on these things, and we do not want you focusing on these other very explicit things.
Commissioner, tell me.
Yeah, if we go to slide 18 on pervious areas for trees, and I've seen this in other contexts. What I'm not really understanding is how applicable it's going to be to this, because just even looking at my little plot of land, I have multiple trees and there isn't a single one of them that has this ideal. Every single tree has a number of impervious things around a garage, a patio, a sidewalk. In fact, countywide, every single one of our street trees doesn't meet this and can't meet this. Yet those trees are alive and most of them are surviving and thriving. So I want to be, are we going to be careful that we're going to say nothing can happen because one tree has to have all this space? So I'd like to understand, the question is, how applicable is this, and how is this going to inform what we're going to do? Because it doesn't seem to reflect the reality of trees in Arlington right now.
Can I make?
Well, that wasn't a clarifying question.
The question is, how is this going to inform when there isn't there's basically not a tree in Arlington other than some of the parks that would meet this requirement?
Okay, so I'm going to allow an answer to that question. As soon as we get out of clarifying questions, and this can be a topic, I know it's a fine line. You can answer that, but only that part of the question. And then if people want to end the clarifying question part and just go into discussion, that's fine too. I recognize it's a fine line. And we just try to create order. Yeah. Take it away.
I can start you.
Sure, yeah, I didn't.
Sure, either one.
Yeah, are we answering? Yeah. Okay.
So Commissioner Lantelmy, I think the way I'll answer your question is that aspect of the board charge, consider minimum plantable area. What is plantable? Some of the questions we've been asking ourselves internally is there a way to model that? Is there a way that we can get a rough estimate or quantify? And if you'll allow me to go to a different slide, that percentage in the green, that 66% pervious, again, if we had done, this is from August 2025 impervious area data. If we had as good a data as we do now 10 years ago, my guess is that 34 would be less and the 66 would be more. But you're correct that not all of that 66 is optimized. You know, a small sliver in a side yard, an area that looks pretty primed as we look at it from above, but there's a massive water main underneath, for example. And so what we'd like to do is use GIS and see if we can identify how much opportunity there is in this 66%. And then I think what you'll see, we didn't, in the interest of time, we didn't go into all of the different sort of subtasks and some of the support we anticipate getting from some of the consultants that we're working with, is really looking at things at the lot level, at the micro level, and saying, okay, with all of the different things that a property owner could have on their lot, if we have different scenarios of impervious area, what are the opportunities to get as close to this as possible?
Okay, that answers the question, but it doesn't really help me a lot because I don't think that's going to work, to be perfectly honest. I mean, looking at this one, you know, the lot coverage, and even this really isn't
impervious area.
Impervious areas isn't covering, it only covers really the house, maybe a driveway. It doesn't pick up any of the other impervious surfaces. So I'm not, it has, obviously we're at the beginning of this, so all this is gonna come out. But right now, I'm deeply skeptical.
I'll add one
Yeah,
other thing
I know
before.
Ryan wanted to jump into.
Yeah.
We do have somewhat suburban forestry as well. So.
This may again, this is purely speculation, Commissioner Lane, tell me. This may have been the reason why the board's charge says consider this, and as opposed to on the impervious area limit, you know, you will give us a recommendation, but on the minimum plantable area, consider it. So
I think another factor which I didn't necessarily mention here was making sure that the spaces aren't sort of chopped up, and it's sort of having contiguous areas. So sometimes you can have maybe a certain amount of pervious space, but it might not be enough in one spot, for the trees. So I think that's another factor, that we're looking at is trying to.
I mean, okay, and I think it's worth, all these things are worth, so absolutely, I'm on board with that. It's just that what my question is trying to get at, it's just looking at my lived experience.
Yeah.
Yep.
And how my trees do look fine, and it's all chopped up.
Okay, I'm gonna move us to the rest of our.
And that's fair.
Mr. Peterson, Commissioner Berkey. I remember that.
So a few questions. I guess I'll tag on with the trees. Are you anticipating that the study will prioritize trees over like native shrubbery? Like if a yard had native shrubbery all over it, but zero trees, is that less? Are you thinking, or does the study position that is less valuable than a tree?
My read of the board's charge doesn't prioritize things that way. If Mr. Delaney has some other feedback on that, he's welcome to chime in, but the charge doesn't prioritize in that way. I will say the charge doesn't, in my personal opinion, the charge doesn't really go there on the native shrubs. It's focusing on trees and tree canopy. So there's something there for all of us to consider.
And then the proposal from a legislative perspective, do you have to use more carrots than sticks? Do you have both as an opportunity? What are our options here?
With the specific guidance that I'll start one way and then allow me to sort of add a little bit more. The board was very specific in saying, staff, do this, give us this. And so at the end of the day, the charge is asking for that recommended maximum impervious area limit. But I recall a comment that came up in one of our Q&A sessions where a member of the public's, either their comment written or verbal was, okay, so let's say I have a, wonderful, 100-foot oak in my backyard, and I want to, add more impervious area. Is there, what if I, committed in some way, shape, or form, and I don't know how to readily do this in zoning, so caveat it that way. What if I were to commit to preserving, safeguarding, and protecting that tree? Could that allow me some sort of incentive or flexibility or bonus of some sort? So I don't see anything specific in the charge that would prevent us from thinking creatively in that regard. But I'm really, I want to be clear, I'm hypothesizing here. We haven't gotten to phase 2 to factor in these different type of nuances, but I wanted to give you a full-throated answer to your question.
Okay, and then I guess I'll just ask one more. How will you be able to assess this? Are we going to go like lot by lot, or are you going to use photos from above? And if someone has trees in their yard that maybe you're like, oh, they have great tree canopy, but then if you actually looked under the leaves, it's like the entire thing is pavement. How would you be able to identify that?
I'll start with the answer, kind of pulling up the map viewer here. And so the green, so these are not necessarily mutually exclusive data sets. So the green, and Commissioner Lantelme may have actually pointed this out, how the green in places covers the yellow. The green is 2023 tree canopy coverage data. And then again, the yellow is the 2025 as of August impervious area layer that's used.
Layers.
These are layers. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. So as far as Commissioner Peterson seeing underneath the trees,
yeah,
this is what allows us to have good data to make that type of analysis.
If you remove the trees, we'd see all the yellow one.
That's correct.
Yeah, it's a separate layer. And
Yep.
typically when they do the water utility, mapping, I mean, there are times of year you do things with, leaves off. So yeah, so they can, they time those when they can get the best information. So, yeah.
Okay. I think I said Commissioner Birkin and Commissioner Strayer.
You did.
Okay.
Great job. So Nick, in answering Tyler's first question, you said something that related to my question. I'm curious about. So how, like, pervious, impervious. So it's the way that it's sort of assessed, it's binary. Something surface is either pervious or impervious. And so if it's impervious, a mitigation, like if you were to, mitigate somehow, I guess you could make it pervious then again. But is it within the scope of this study to contemplate that if a lot was on the line or like over the limit for impervious, that there might be mitigation measures? Kind of an idea similar to the preservation of the oak. Like there are things they could do. I don't know. Look, I don't know how you enforce it. I don't know how you scope it. But like rain barrels or gardens or other mitigation measures. We do mitigation in other parts of our zoning ordinance for certain things. Like, is that something that could be contemplated?
So I'm gonna let staff answer that. I don't view that as a clarifying question. That's like, what will the scope of the study be? Not like, I didn't understand that. So I would, Commissioner Steiner, is your question an actual clarifying question?
It is. Yeah.
Right. Well, sorry, Commissioner Berkey. Commissioner Steiner asked a clarifying question and we'll go into.
I think that's absolutely clarifying.
Conversation.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm
With the
pulling back, I guess, on that one.
So to clarify, the permeable pavement is not permeable in this case. You guys are viewing that as impervious surface.
Permeable paver materials
Yeah.
would count towards a lot's maximum impervious area limit.
Even okay, so I'm just a little. So even though it's with the explicit intent to be permeable paver material, it would
But it's
still
not as good as grass.
not as good as
Yeah,
shrubs.
it goes back to some of the state definitions, so they really prioritize natural.
Sure.
So, even any of these built spaces, are considered impervious. And then under the development, if you're redeveloping and you get water quality credits. You do get some credits toward that, like for an LDA permit. Also under the stormwater utility, you can get credits. And part of the reason, why that works is that you do have to maintain them. They have to be maintained. So if you put it in and you don't take care of it, eventually it will not be as, pervious as it was when it was initially installed. So that crediting, process kind of allows to make sure that it's maintained, and still functional. So like, for example, when people put them in as part of a redevelopment, they have to certify every couple of years and send pictures to show that they're still, functioning as when they were installed.
So it helps them with taxes, but not so much here is the kind of.
So yeah, I mean, under an impervious area limit, for this, they would count, as impervious area. So again, and I've been sort of thinking of more of as built
Sure.
areas, because again, when you're sort of thinking of, for the trees and spaces for water to soak in, it's just a different way. So that was a kind of a confusion point that came up initially. So we've been trying to clarify that.
Yeah, thank you.
The piece I'll add on, Commissioner Streiner, is that any surface this verbiage here, it's a paraphrase, but it comes from Chapter 60 of the County Code, which is our stormwater management, has all of our stormwater management regulations, and so we have a working definition of impervious. I think technically it's impervious surface as it reads in the County Code. We believe that rather than creating something new out of thin air, that there should be as much compatibility and like on like as possible to not cause any more confusion. And so we don't have draft zoning language or anything else like that. That's going to be a phase 2 thing. But my expectation is that as we look to give guidance in the zoning ordinance recommendation on what impervious area is or isn't, we're going to be mimicking as close as possible, if not, just a cut paste of what's in Chapter 60. And you're exactly right. It's not black and white.
Right.
It requires some judgment and some discernment and this is a classic example of that. It's more of a performance standard as opposed to a black and white yes or no.
Gotcha.
Okay, moving us off of clarifying questions, and we're going to go back to Commissioner Berkey for the discussion point. Do you recall his question, or do you need him to repeat any of it?
I would benefit from a refresher.
Yeah, well, I asked a clarifying question about scope, because we're beginning the process here.
Yeah.
Which is, do you contemplate considering any possible ways that a property owner could mitigate pervious coverage without necessarily making a certain percentage of that pervious surface, I guess, impervious, right? So like, for example, if they're right on the line, but then they want to have, more pervious surface instead of having to rip up their driveway, is there, could there be another mitigating measure they could take that possibly could, provide, for rainwater and whatnot, mitigate that we could contemplate to say, technically you're over the line, but we have made an assessment that you have mitigated as such that it's, satisfies the policy that we've contemplated, et cetera. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that something that's within scope? Actually.
I mean,
Sorry, you want to start?
yeah, I mean, it's potential. It's a little further ahead of where we are at this point in the study. So I
Fair
think
enough.
as we get into actually identifying possible options, I think, and then because we've also gotten questions about enforcement, like how will and so again, that's not something that we that the team has kind of delved into all the details on. So I think it's definitely a good good feedback, and that we can bring it back and discuss it.
Because what triggered me is like when you were talking about the pervious pavers.
Yeah.
Whether they would or the impervious. Sorry, I'm confusing it. Right, but they wouldn't count. Like you took all this effort, but they still wouldn't count. Right. I obviously could see a property owner going, "Wait a minute, what the heck? Like I did all this."
Yeah.
But it's still counting as impervious.
Yeah.
Right.
We to this effect, we have we have a task order underway with a consultant who's doing some peer and neighboring jurisdiction analysis, and it's not universal, but in a couple a la carte examples, their zoning reads similar to what you've described, Commissioner Berkey, that there is a cap, there's a percentage of some sort, but if the property owner implements a certain measure, that has some porosity to it, then there's forgive me for not having it off the tip of my tongue, it's either a reduction or a percentage credit of some sort. There is some sort of benefit. There's some sort of implicit incentive in the regulation. Like Ms. Winquist said, there's nothing in my read of the charge that says staff don't think creatively in that regard. The challenge will be, but what the charge does ask us to consider is administration and enforcement.
Absolutely.
It's got to be simple. It's got to be clean. It's got to be easily understandable to someone not on the planning commission.
Sure.
Commissioner Antoni, and then Commissioner Peters.
Are we taking an approach where we're going to be doing it standards by zoning district, R4, R6, or R8? Or are we going to be doing it by lot size? Because we have so many lots that are non-conforming in all of the R zones. And we've run into problems before with it's undevelopable, or it becomes a bureaucratic nightmare to do anything with the non-conforming property. And we have a lot of them. And we have some that are also really, really big.
Yeah.
Even though they're in a zone that has roughly smaller lots. So it seems to me that we really should be looking at lot by standards that would go by lot size, just covering everything rather than by zoning district. Is that the idea we're going to be doing here, or is that to be decided further down the road?
It's to be decided, but it's on the table. And the charge is explicit in that regard. Think about lot size, think about zoning district, think about the complexity, everything you just described. Staff, you need to factor all of that in. The creation of nonconformities, our superiors were very explicit in the sort of support that they gave to the board in this decision, that what you could be doing if you were to take this action is to increase the number of non-conforming lots in Arlington, and there could be very draconian implications for that. How, at least for much of our residential development, that draconianism, for lack of a better word, has been loosened and made flexible so people can make common sense modifications and upgrades to their homes.
As a PC, we've strongly been supporting those.
Yeah.
Giving way more flexibility than non-conforming.
Yeah.
Trying to get rid of almost the whole concept.
And as Commissioner Berkey noted in some of our preliminary conversations, just making sure we understand the current status quo, those situations like he described where someone wants to make an addition or add a detached structure of some sort, they do the right thing. They file the permits. They're working with the zoning division, and zoning division says, we can't approve this because this is going to bust your maximum lot coverage limit. And so in those instances, our understanding is that more often than not, they are demoing their driveway in some capacity in order to claw back some of that area to facilitate their improvement. So this is something that's happening, and it's something that the charge is asking us to be mindful of with those recommendations.
Okay. Commissioner Peterson, then Commissioner Robertson, and then
So do I understand correctly that if we set a maximum, it would apply to all lots? And so if somebody currently has put impervious pavers all over, like I've seen some in my neighborhood where like they can cover their entire front yard to make like a driveway for 6 cars. It's awful, but I think they spent a lot of money on it. And then if we said, oh, actually, you're not allowed to do that, would they theoretically have to go back and dig up a third of it?
It would theoretically be non-conforming.
Okay.
And so I don't want to presuppose what their decision tree is beyond that point, but if an individual lot has X percentage of impervious area, and if the board were to adopt a maximum impervious area limit that was below what they had, they've essentially, their existing condition is busting that cap, and they are now non-conforming. And I think that gets to what Commissioner Berkey and Commissioner Lantelman is like, well, what recourse does the property owner have? That's something we have to put some thought into.
So sorry, Commissioner Robinson, before I jump to you, insert myself as privilege. So would it be within the realm of possibility, some sort of a grandfathering in sort of clause? I imagine that's something that the county board has taken an approach to say that, well, this wasn't a violation at, as of some date, arbitrary date of report, date of adoption, what have you. And therefore, if you wanted to make any changes to such a thing, then these would be effective. Is that something that, is contemplated in your study and recommendations, or just in how the county board operates?
I think I'll say yes, simply leaning on the consideration of nonconformities.
I don't understand that response.
And the reason I'm being careful with my words is because these grandfathering and nonconformity are not the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And so grandfathering would mean I have an amount of impervious area on my lot, and I could demo, I could bring it back, I can do whatever I want with my property, but I have to stay within that threshold whenever the board adopted the maximum impervious area. Non-conforming is different. The intention behind non-conformities is that ultimately the zoning regulations force that property into conformance. And so going back to our previous example where the example that Commissioner Peterson identified, there's a lot of impervious area on the property. And a limit is adopted that is below what they have.
Yeah.
And so they're non-conforming. They'd be allowed to make no changes and maintain what they have. But any, and again, it depends on what they want to do, what the change is. They would need to potentially pull back, come back into conformance, no matter what they had at the time of the board's action. So it gets real squirrely
So
real
this does
quick.
do what Commissioner Berkey was getting at before from a mitigation standpoint. Could have a scenario in which one mitigation option is of the grandfathering in type of when it would become effective, and another would be in terms of what your options are to be brought into conformance and when a conformance requirement is triggered.
Let's say yes.
Okay, that one I understood. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Robertson.
I've worked on climate change issues professionally since the 1990s. One of the constants in dealing with climate change typically has been in the causes of climate change and dealing with the effects of climate change has been the need for comprehensive plans. Pulling a lever over here can affect what happens over there. How much, if any, are you coordinating what we're doing on this specific undertaking with other things that affect one of the elements of climate change that you're dealing with, stormwater management? I think, for example, of Sycamore Street near my house in North Arlington, where when it was widened and medians were put in, they're vegetatively covered, or if you connect them to stormwater management systems, it's one effective way of dealing with it. This may be another, but knowing how much you're doing, how much DES is doing with the streets is really important to how much planning is doing with this sort of thing. Is there discussion amongst the departments about the best way to coordinate this?
Sure. I mean, I can jump in. I know probably more on a project basis. I mean, I know we coordinate a lot, amongst our other divisions when we're doing, for example, traffic calming or complete streets, in terms of adding, some of our stormwater features to those as well. So there is, a lot of
Yeah.
collaboration and, part of what we've done, I think, even with our mapping system is having more of the information about, flood zones and, we've done studies of good places to put the green streets, and so all that. So when people are in there, if you're looking at, a sidewalk project, you can
Yeah.
see, oh, this is also a location where if we have, we could use additional, stormwater management, or we could, this might be a good location for a green street. So we do a lot of that, at the project level. And then obviously, I think also when we do update, the various plans, I mean, I know, for example, like even the overall comp plan effort that's going on now, it's all the staff
Sure.
are involved in
Yeah.
that as well.
Well, look, I think this is absolutely true and necessary. The project level stuff that you talked about is a little more opportunistic, it seems to me. And what I'm talking about is a more comprehensive effort to plan, to figure out how much time, effort, and money do we need to spend on this, given that we're spending this much time, effort, and money over here. And it's not easy to do. I get that. It takes a lot of time and effort to try to do it right. I just think some additional effort here would pay off. So I commend that to your attention.
Clarifying question, real clarifying question.
Okay, but I,
It's too late for those two.
real roll taker, Commissioner Amadeo first, and then I'll go to Commissioner Tommy.
So I'm utterly overwhelmed by all the questions that I have. And so I'm on the other side. I'm usually the clients organizing the permits, submitting to you permits of different types of projects, the small ones, the big ones, and they all treat different things. If you're under 2,000 square feet, X. If you're between 2,000 and 2,500, you do Y, and then if you're above. So I don't know if I have a clarifying question, so I'm.
That's okay, regular questions are allowed.
And I don't know how much time. So what I'm asking first is, can I be part of the team that talks about this? Wherever you guys meet, I want to be there, even if it's the fly on the wall, because there is so much to say about this. I talk to homeowners all the time, and they're very frightened by all of this because there's so much. They're spending so much money on consultants, the arborists, all the people that are required to comply with all these different requirements. And then some of them contradict each other. If I remove a driveway to be compliant with zoning, then I trigger LDA with DES. And DES gets me on, there's a 750 square foot limit on some of the measures, 2,500 on others. The way they're calculated is very confusing to clients. So they cannot do it alone. They have to do it with consultants. And the consultants, they all want money apparently. And so, I think it becomes, and I know you have a streamlined version for people that are doing small remodels, which is what I do a lot of. And I'm trying to keep Arlington sane by keeping people from doing big projects. And so there should be a relief on setbacks. If I look at your setbacks, not yours, zoning setbacks diagram, I can only put air conditioning here. I can only put a deck here. I can only put something else here. I have run out of space for the roots, like he was saying. And so, and other things that I don't even understand because I don't understand organic matter. I only do. And so all these things, all these collaborations. And so what comes from, I mean, all of this stuff I think has to be put together. Yeah. And so that's where I would like to be. I would like to be part of that collaboration for sure. And I think there is a way maybe to make all of this work. I know that she wants to talk about it too. And also one thing to consider is right now with zoning, you can put a detached garage all the way at the end of the lot, thus creating basically 100-foot deep driveways. And I think that alone, there's a bit of insanity there.
Sorry, but especially in Tommy was.
That's
next in line.
Sorry, I
No, that's okay. Commissioner Tommy, then I'll do a time check, then Commissioner Torres.
Yeah, it's just a quick one. For this low residential study, are we only looking at lots that are within the R5 to R20 zones and not the townhouse zones that are within low residential. So just lots that are within R5 to R20.
No, that, all our districts. So
So that includes the townhouse ones. Okay, because those have a whole different
a
set of
different conversation. You're
issues
exactly right.
than the Rs do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now it's.
So just a comment, the reason why we're running out of space though. is The houses used to be 1,500.
See, that's the whole thing that's
Now-
not included.
Right, and now they're double. And so I think.
I know where you're going.
Right, so I think we're trying to pull back because we're realizing that we're maximizing these lots.
Right.
It's affecting everything, not just vegetation, but also how much energy and water we're consuming. And so I saw the presentations that you sent, thank you so much, those are wonderful. You guys probably made, so. It all made so much sense. So much sense because we forget that it's so desirable is because it has these beautiful corridors with beautiful vegetation and beautiful trees, yet we are getting away from that a little bit, which is allowable, buildable laws, I want to say, or regulations. And I'm probably talking against my own interests here, but I also grew up in Arlington. So I'm torn because I love that we have such mature trees and such beautiful streets. And I also love to design beautiful large houses for people that want beautiful houses. But I also wonder if the houses that we are designing as architects, designers, if it's a developer that's coming in and if that's the end user, or if that's someone that's just coming in to maximize the square footage, make money, and move on. So that's why I'm torn. If that makes sense.
Okay.
Commissioner Steinberger, just a follow on. One of our backup slides, a board that we had at the open house. One of the research questions we asked ourselves is, okay, how has development changed in recent years? And so we took a look at 2009. Again, we had to sort of mix different data sets in order to do this, but you can see the change from the orange in 2009 to the 2025 data there. And so, again, it took some marrying up of some of our housing data, but exactly what you described, how there is an increase in the amount of impervious area in our low residential areas that is attributed to the building footprint. And so one could potentially ask a research question, well, is that increase in building footprint area, are we getting more housing? Are we increasing our housing supply? And the data shows that it's not. And so what we, and my expectation is that, and I won't steal his thunder, but Mr. Richardson will speak to this. We just want to be very certain and clear that we're not refuting the data, and but we're also not necessarily making a judgment call one way or the other. We are continuing to work with the direction and the guidance of the board's charge. And for any member of the public who has issue with the study charge, we have encouraged, and we will continue to encourage them to reach out to their elected officials, share these perspectives, and let their voice be heard. So, but I just wanted to be very clear to our commissioners that we're not sort of this. Like, we hear folks, we're listening, we understand how folks have grave concerns on the amount of building that has been added. And while that's not acknowledged in the study's charge, we do hear that feedback from folks.
Okay, so I want to do a time check for folks before we continue. We're at just about 8:15. This is advertised until 8:30. So if we go a minute or two over, I'm okay with that, but I do want to sort of try to stick with that. So I'm seeing a few more hands. We do have a couple folks for public comment. I think people are excited to hear the public comment. So I'm going to cut us off in about 10 minutes from this discussion. Okay. Commissioner Berkey, Commissioner Lynch-Helmy, Commissioner Peterson.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, okay, Commissioner Tommy, Commissioner Bergen, Commissioner Peterson.
Following up on both of your comments, which are really excellent. Arlington now has property values that are so high that any house, anytime a small house gets sold and it's great, the building in its place is going to be totally maxed. It's 95 to 100% of the envelope allowed. That's happening in my neighborhood. It's happening in every neighborhood around here. So I'm assuming we have to assume in this process is that any lot will be built to its maximum. Or any new lot will be built to its maximum. And that has implications for lot coverage, of course. But that's one of the things which really is outside the scope is the size of the building, because, you know, McMansions is the issue. I've talked to some real estate, we've done some of these open houses in my neighborhood where a house goes up, it's a $3 million house, 6 bedrooms. And we said, you know, who needs 6 bedrooms? And the agent showing it said, you know, I can't be quoted on this, but nobody, you know, yeah, they're not used. So when you said that we're not getting more housing, you're absolutely right. We're getting more buildings, but we're not getting more housing. Yeah, and we're also
Units, yeah.
yeah,
dwelling.
we're, you know, a lot. So we're sort of like sidestepping all of these issues, and I think that's part of because we're stuck with the county board's charge, and you have to follow that. I 100% agree. But that's going to be a frustration here, is that the elephant in the room is McMansions. You know, single family houses that are 9,000 square feet. They were never contemplated by the zoning ordinance when they were done decades and decades, half a century ago. And it's a different reality now. And we might get something out of this, but it's really not going to the real problem. Anyway,
Commissioner Ricky.
All right, I'll be very fast. I would associate myself with Commissioner Amadeo's comments about, you know, the setbacks, and I appreciated that. And I would say, from my perspective at this moment, one of the things I would appreciate you emphasizing as we begin the process would be flexibility for property owners. It seems to me that there are two kind of main things we're trying to achieve here, is looking at stormwater, right? And how can we best deal with our stormwater issues, and then also tree preservation. So to me, because of that, those are in of itself could be a little competing, but then all these other issues and priorities we put upon property owners, to the greatest extent that we can make administration of this for them flexible. So if they're trying to save a tree, you know, the setback is maybe a little bit different on this side, and maybe it's more on this side, and we kind of trade a little bit. It's never going to be perfect, but that's the type of flexibility that if they could have that conversation up front, as opposed to having to haggle with the county and spend a lot of money and consultants.
And not have to go to BZA. Or
Yeah, so you're never going to land in a perfect place there, but if we could emphasize flexibility being a value, that would be appreciated.
I've seen trees that were like this huge around in a corner of a lot that got scraped by the you know, just walking distance from my house. I have pictures of them, and it's like, no wonder the neighbors get upset.
Mr. Peterson.
So overall, when you're crafting it, I think I prefer, there was a slide that you showed like a seesaw. And so if we can pull that up, I think I prefer like a stronger approach, but giving people time to prepare. And also making sure to offer mitigants. So if somebody does say, well, I want to build an EHO and it's going to take up larger lot size, well, sure, but put tons of shrubbery, like cover every square inch of the lawn with native species, and that's a nice balance to achieve. So I would like to see how we can consider native species and shrubbery, not just trees, because I think those are part of the solution. And then I just had a question more of like, if we are increasing the requirement of permeable surface, doesn't that inherently force people to have smaller building footprints because they won't be able to go as high if they are required to have a certain percentage of their. So we're kind of indirectly getting maybe to some of the question about McMansions.
I'll respond with a variation, and what I'll do is I'll go back to
Ultimate McMansion.
All I'll say is I'll go back to this slide. Buildings count as impervious area. So in whatever recommendation that is provided to first you and then the county board, buildings will count as impervious area.
Okay, so yes.
Just to give a perspective from the Forestry and Natural Resource Commission, this issue was huge in development of the Forestry and Natural Resource Plan. There was a tremendous urgency in this. We all have seen it, the giant white houses in all of our neighborhoods and the scrapes from, everything that used to grow. And, as Commissioner Lantelme pointed out, it's a financial issue. And after pushing on this issue for years to try to get the county to move on this, our perspective was that at least this is a start, and perhaps we can get to what we're hoping to achieve through, this impervious surface area. So given the reticence of the board to even go anywhere on this one, I feel like this is a really important first step, but we need to do it well, and we need to do it quickly. We don't need the last one. We spent a lot of time looking at the last time this was done in 2005, and it took years. We don't want to do that. We want to get on with this. And a lot of people talked about, when you talk about phase 2, we talk about phase 2 of the study, not necessarily this study, but a second phase beyond this study to get this done and then move forward too. So, and I would also say I don't agree with the concept that stormwater and trees are necessarily competing. Trees do a lot for stormwater absorption. We really need that. Probably the biggest competition is grass. If we could get rid of grass, that would be awesome because it's pretty close to impervious surface too. So anyway, just editorial comments.
There you have it. Right.
No more grass.
Less
Okay.
grass.
Less grass.
All right.
More plants.
So, we are close to any final thoughts, final comments from the table, from anyone online? Online people, you've been very quiet. Okay with that, just remind me you have been quiet. Before we move to public comment. One question sort of for next steps. When do we see you again?
Don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ballparking.
Late spring.
Like 6 months?
Yep.
That's fine. They
Yeah.
ballpark. Anything?
I would guess maybe late spring. I mean, again, well,
Ish.
yeah,
Okay.
yes.
All right, fair enough. And at that point, this will be sort of with what will be the content at that point, you're hoping?
Well, our next round of engagement, will hopefully identify, some options that we'll be evaluating. So we might have, some options for an impervious area limit, and then trying to look at what the benefits of those options and impacts. And and I think Nick had mentioned, one thing we'll be actually looking at, case studies of actual, properties and redevelopments and, yeah. And we, no, that's great. I mean, that we appreciate that. And seeing how things fit, looking at different levels and then, what sort of plantable areas would we have? And we all, we also have to fit in the stormwater management facilities, with any of these projects, utilities and things like that. So trying to look at the real world, impact of that.
And we bury detention tanks, sorry.
Right?
Detention tanks.
Oh,
Please bury them. Just in the.
very detention tanks.
Yes.
Okay, sorry,
They're popping up everywhere.
yeah, okay. Okay, yep.
Madam Chair, my expectation is that when we come back to LRPC, it won't be, here are 3, some number, or 2, 3, however many percentages, go at it. There would be percentages, but then also some of the accompanying regulations, kind of like what Commissioner Lantelme and Commissioner Berkey have called upon for some of the other factors that are in the charge.
I just have a sense of what people can kind of
Yeah.
look to for that. Okay, so we're going to move to public comment now. Okay, I understand that since we're at 8:23, I like to end things on time. I don't usually give as many as 3 minutes for public comment, but I understand the folks, we have 2 people seeking to do public comment, and I understand that they're kind of meatier analyses perhaps. So I'm inclined to go with 3 minutes for each of them. Who's first?
So we'll do virtual.
Okay,
Vote
sure.
line.
Okay. And are you gonna keep track of time? Should I keep track of time? I can do it. I'll keep it. And hang on, I have to be a capable person, so hold on.
Do you want to stop?
Okay,
Yeah.
and floor is yours.
Okay, hopefully y'all can see me. I have some daggers hanging for a Halloween party, so apologies for that. As I noted, I'm Ann Bodine. I live in R6 zone of Line Park. Tonight, I'm speaking on behalf of Arlington Tree Action Group. We believe a better approach in this new study is to focus on the zoning ordinance to make room for trees, i.e. adding plantable space, which would guarantee more pervious surface and not switching to a pervious surface approach. Why is that? Because pervious surface does not guarantee more plantable space due to the fact that our current stormwater management system involves engineered solutions that are unsuited for trees in many cases, i.e. your pervious pavers and driveways that you heard about, but also dry wells and planter box and rain barrels. The staff has briefed the county since November that of the impervious areas in these R zones, 13% is taken up by walkways and patios. And at ATAG, we never have anyone call us and say those walkways and patios are out of control. They, like Commissioner Antelmi noted, are complaining about the size of the house, and the county staff has told us that 65% of the impervious surface is taken up by the building. So the obvious solution is to look at reducing lot coverage maximums in the buildings. Right now in R6, it's a 48% maximum lot coverage, and the building footprint in R6, the maximum is 2772 square feet on the ground floor. So because your position as planning commissioners, you have a key role in recommending to the board that it revise its charge to staff. Staff is doing a fabulous job. I've engaged with them a lot, but it's painful to see the contortions they are being forced into because the board has turned tail on real lot coverage reforms. ATAG is among those arguing that it is nonsense to assume, and I've heard you all echo that tonight, that if we move away from lot coverage controls to impervious surface only, property owners will challenge the absurdity of their pervious driveways still counting as impervious. This will last 5 minutes in court, and we will throw out lot coverage as our main control. The problem is that it will likely backfire with even bigger McMansions, just like our 2005 reform did, because the jobs in the market have changed. We sent you a very thorough slide deck. I hope you will look at it. We asked that you recommend to the board that they agree to study the core problem of huge footprints, lot coverage maximums, and setbacks so staff can do the proper analysis. That you look at other jurisdictions such as Vienna, which has a 25% maximum lot coverage, which addresses the core issues. That you allow developers to earn stormwater credit for land disturbance projects for trees, which are actual stormwater utilities, but they're not allowed credit. That you improve enforcement on zoning and lot coverage and stormwater rules post-development. So I have a couple more, those are my comments, but I just want to add because of the very interesting discussion to Commissioner Lantalmi talking about how trees survive. In 2004, the county did an urban canopy study that said in 3 decades, we had lost 3,000 of 16,500 acres of our tree canopy that went from 50% canopy to less than 20% canopy. So trees are not surviving, and we've known it for 30 years. I refer you to my slide, the ATAG slide 12, which shows the county showed, I'm sorry, my time's up. All right, thank you very much.
Jingle, but it is jingle jingling.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we did receive the presentation, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
And our next speaker.
Bill Richardson.
Mr. Richardson, the floor is yours when you're ready.
I just wanted to circulate a couple things. 2 of them are slides from the presentation.
That's fine. And Mr. Richardson also shared a presentation.
Yeah.
Okay. Your timing is starting.
Now?
Yes. Did you need another minute?
Let me just circulate these first, okay?
Okay, well, I thought you could start talking while we circulate them.
Donaldson Run is part of a group of now 24 civic associations that believe this limited study unwisely reverses the county board's 2023 vote to conduct a meaningful study of the lot coverage provisions of the zoning ordinance. The county is now proposing to change the subject to look instead at how stormwater management tools can deal with impervious surfaces more generally. Our group on this map reflects a consensus among highly diverse neighborhoods all over the county, from smaller R5 to larger R20 lots. We cannot understand why the county has flatly ignored such widespread community concerns in reversing course from the lot coverage studies recommended by staff 11 years ago. Look at my slide 8 from the staff, the dots. The red dots are the key, the building footprints. The real problem here does not involve sidewalks and patios. It's the jaw-dropping size of the building footprints for new multi-million-dollar houses. A couple of you focused on this just now, but here's how the late county board member Eric Gutschall put it. Home sizes that were once the theoretical maximum are now the de facto minimum for new home rebuilds. Arlington needs to initiate the modernization of our zoning ordinance with a frank discussion of just what character do we want in our neighborhoods. But the low residential study does not target the elephant in the room. In fact, as Nick says, the county now will not permit even studying building footprint limits. And it touts flexibility for developers to build a bigger house by reducing sidewalks, patios, and driveways. Every week, we see another example of a teardown that clear cuts the whole lots of mature trees, depletes our limited housing stock of smaller and more affordable homes, and disrupts the quiet enjoyment of neighbors. Please urge the county to get back to doing something about these real problems and create an LRPC subgroup to include our civic associations and ATAG. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate everyone's time and attention on the subject. Right? And with that, we're adjourned.